Welcome back. Let's now take you across live to a special briefing by India's Foreign Ministry on the visit of India's President Draupadi Murmu to Fiji, New Zealand and Timor-Leste.
President Shri Ajay Singh, Joint Secretary looking after Oceania region, Srimati Paramita Tripathi, as also Joint Secretary looking after South countries in that region, Shri Ashish Sinha. With that, I give the floor to Secretary Sir. Sir.
Thank you, Randir, and a very good afternoon to all you friends from the media. Thank you for coming to this special briefing on the upcoming visit of Honorable Rashtrapati Ji to the three countries, the three state visits that Randir has just told you about. So let me just start with a brief overview of the context of the visits. So Rashtrapati Ji will be first going to Fiji and then to New Zealand and then to Timor-Leste. With both Fiji and Timor-Leste, this would be the first ever visit by the President of India, and therefore it has special significance. Ever since Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi enunciated his Act East policy, the region, Southeast Asia and the Pacific, has been a very special focus for us. So all these three countries fall within our Act East policy. With New Zealand also, we have a very old and strong partnership that we carry forward in our relations with the Pacific Island countries. Timor-Leste itself has been accepted as a member of ASEAN. It will become the 11th member of ASEAN after it has completed its accession processes. So, and with Fiji, of course, as you all know, we have a very old and strong relationship. Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi launched the FIPIC, the Forum for India and Pacific Island Countries, in 2014 from Fiji. And therefore, it is a strong pillar of our relationship with the Pacific Islands. So this gives you an overall context of the importance of these three visits. So firstly, Honorable Rashtrapati Ji will visit Fiji, our special partner in the Pacific, at the invitation of the President of Fiji, His Excellency Ratu William Kotoni-Vere. Rashtrapati Ji will be there between 5th to 7th of August. We have completed 75 years of our diplomatic presence in Fiji when we started with what we called then the Commission for India, established in 1948, much before Fiji gained independence in 1970. During this visit, Rashtrapati Ji will hold bilateral meetings with both President Kotoni-Vere and Prime Minister of Fiji, His Excellency Mr. Sitiveni Rabuka, in Suva. In addition, Rashtrapati Ji will also address the Fijian Parliament and interact with members of Parliament, among whom many are of Fijian origin, of Indian origin, as you know. We have very strong people-to-people ties with Fiji. The first Indians who arrived there were around 1857 as indentured laborers, or Girmitias as they are called. Today, more than a third of the population in Fiji is of Indian ancestry, and they have preserved their languages, customs and traditions from India while adding local flavor. An important aspect, therefore, of the state visit will be the community interaction that Rashtrapati Ji will have in Suva. The visit confirms and reaffirms the strong commitment of India and Fiji to further strengthen our bilateral relations for progress and prosperity of the peoples of our two countries. India has been a strong development partner for Fiji, having undertaken numerous projects, has also offered lines of credit. We will be also setting up a 100-bed tertiary hospital in Suva, and that is something that was announced by our Prime Minister a few years ago, and we hope to implement that very soon. So that would be also an important subject of our discussion there. Moving on to the second leg of the visit, Rashtrapati Ji will pay a state visit to New Zealand on 8th and 9th of August at the invitation of the Governor-General, Her Excellency the Right Honourable Dame Cindy Kiro. This will be a presidential visit to New Zealand after 8 years. Besides bilateral meetings with the Governor-General, Her Excellency Dame Cindy Kiro, Rashtrapati Ji will also have meetings called on her by the Prime Minister, Mr. Christopher Luxon, and the Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister, Mr. Winston Peters, who was here in March this year. They will make courtesy calls on her, and later on that evening, the Governor-General will be hosting a banquet in honor of Honorable Rashtrapati Ji. As you know, the government of New Zealand has put India as a special focus country for their bilateral relations. New Zealand recognizes India as a key partner in defense and security, and in terms of overall bilateral trade, investment, people-to-people contact, etc. And therefore, this visit will itself be highly significant. Education plays a big part in our bilateral relations. We are the country with the second largest number of students in New Zealand. About 8,000 Indian students study there, and Rashtrapati Ji will therefore be addressing an international education conference in Wellington, where India is the guest of honor. This underscores the significance of the educational relationship, where New Zealand is looking to work with India and collaborate with our education system and our educational institutions, apart from the students that we send there. The following day, Rashtrapati Ji will have an interaction with the Indian diaspora and Friends of India at a community reception in Auckland. As you know, the Indian diaspora there is about 300,000 strong out of a total population of 5 million. They are very well integrated into New Zealand society and are really a living bridge between the two countries. These warm and friendly ties with New Zealand have seen an uptick in recent years, and the visit is expected to give further impetus to the growing relations in a large number of areas. From New Zealand, Rashtrapati Ji will travel to Timor-Leste at the invitation of the President of Timor-Leste, Jose Ramos Horta, and on 10th of August will be the main day of engagements. This will, as I have said before, be the first head of state level visit from India to Timor-Leste. During the visit, apart from the bilateral meeting with the President, there will be also a meeting with the Prime Minister, Mr. Zanana Gusmao, His Excellency Mr. Zanana Gusmao, who will call on Rashtrapati Ji, and there will be also a community reception with Indians in Timor-Leste and Friends of India. We have several areas of bilateral cooperation which we would like to follow up with the government of Timor-Leste in various areas such as IT, digitalization, healthcare, agriculture, and capacity building. As you know, Rashtrapati Ji's visit is 7 months after the President of Timor-Leste himself, President Horta, visited India and attended the vibrant Gujarat summit in January this year, when he met Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi on the sidelines of that event. We have announced the opening of our mission in Timor-Leste. Prime Minister had announced this in September last year, and we are well on the way to setting up our embassy, and we will be setting it up very soon. Timor-Leste has also in the meantime announced its intention to open an embassy in New Delhi, which we have welcomed warmly, and so this will be the Delhi Connect, which will only get stronger after the two embassies are opened. Besides that, Timor-Leste is a young and vibrant democracy, and we have had many, many years of warm and cordial relationship with that country, and therefore the visit is a very timely one and one of great significance for Timor-Leste and India's relationship. I will now stop here, and if you have any questions, I will take them.
So before we open the floor, please keep your questions focused on the 3 state visits. Siddhant?
Sir, in terms of India's Indo-Pacific strategy, how important these visits are? And my second question is, you talked about opening up of an Indian embassy in Delhi, which was announced by the Prime Minister. Any timeline we are looking at, any month we are looking at? And the third and my last question is, the President's address to the Fijian Parliament, will it be in Hindi?
Thank you. That question, I hope I was adequately able to answer the importance of these three visits for our Act East policy. It is because we have both a very strong and deep and historical connect with these 3 countries, and because we have so many things that we think we can do with them for the future in every area, whether it is in area of development, in the area of bilateral cooperation in diverse areas, or in defense and security. That is the significance of the visit. About whether the President will speak in Hindi or in English or in what language, wait and see. I invite you to be surprised. What was the other question?
So opening up of the Indian embassy.
Yes. So we have already identified a team which will be there in Delhi shortly to open the embassy. We are in the process of appointing an ambassador as well. And similarly, on the side of Timor-Leste, we are waiting for their team to arrive and for them to set up their embassy. And it should be done within the next couple of months, at least from our side.
So, Huma?
Sir, I'm Huma Siddiqui from the Financial Express. So you mentioned that defense and security with reference to New Zealand. What exactly are we going to talk about in the defense and security with New Zealand? And you also mentioned the President is going to be addressing the education conference. What is this conference about?
So on the first part, I have mentioned defense and security as an important aspect of our conversation with New Zealand in the region, in the Indo-Pacific region. And this was also discussed when Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister of New Zealand visited India in March. And it has been expressed that this is an area that New Zealand would also like to engage India with in the Asia Pacific. And therefore we will take up that conversation. As far as what was the other question? I'm sorry, and education. Yes. As I mentioned, education being an important area in which many Indian students study in New Zealand. New Zealand educational institutions are also interested to tie up with Indian institutions, both in terms of setting up institutions as well as in collaborating in, say, joint degrees and things like that. We already have one instance of that, Deakin University, but there will be conversations about how that can be expanded significantly and what are the models that are available in terms of our new education policy of the Government of India.
Siddhant?
Hi sir, my question is to Secretary Lees. Sir, I'm Siddhant from CNN News 18. Sir, we have been seeing that since Prime Minister Modi coming to power for the 3rd time, there is an immense focus on India's Act East policy. There have been many high-level visits to, even the Vietnamese Prime Minister was here, then NSA Doval was there for BIMSTEC. A lot of focus on Eastern friends and partners, sir. Now you are here to announce Rashtrapatiji's visit to 3 countries. So I would like to understand from your, perhaps if you can share some perspective on the connectivity domain, how important the Eastern partners and allies are as far as the connectivity domain is concerned, and what progress we have made so far. Thank you.
This is a subject that we could go on quite extensively about. Unfortunately, today's press conference is about Rashtrapatiji's visit. So apart from the fact that we consider connectivity in a very holistic way, it is not only physical connectivity in terms of transport and communication, but also digital connectivity, people-to-people connectivity, civilizational and spiritual connectivity. So these are all different aspects that bind this region to India, and we are working on all fronts on this. So apart from that, I will not want to digress from the subject of the Rashtrapatiji's visit. Thank you.
So if there are no more questions, then thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for your presence. Done.
So my question is to Ajay sir. If Ajay sir, you can share the number of visits that Rashtrapatiji has taken abroad so far. Rashtrapati Murmu, if we can have the number.
Well, I won't be having it at hand.
We can update you on that. We'll come back to you on that, Siddhant. So with that, we come to a close of this session. Thank you very much for your presence. Thank you, sir, for taking out time to speak to our media friends.
All right, so that was the briefing that was held by India's Foreign Ministry, the Ministry of External Affairs, about the upcoming visit of the President of India, Draupadi Murmu, to 3 countries in the Indo-Pacific region, which is Fiji, New Zealand and Timor-Leste. And 2 of these visits are the first presidential visits, both to Fiji and to Timor-Leste, and even to New Zealand. The President is travelling after a gap of 8 years. A lot of diplomatic activities that will be coming up over there. We are also now taking you across to an event where the External Affairs Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar, is speaking. He's at the Center for Air Power Studies, which is organized
close to his heart, but its revolutionary implications on the balance of power would probably have fascinated him. At the same time, his strong sense of history would have enabled him to take a long view of all these developments. With that in mind, let us contemplate the world around us currently. The foundation for any strategizing is obviously to understand the landscape. It is only when there is a proper appreciation of its contradictions and possibilities that any nation can plan its growth and advancement. The first feature in that regard is, we have already spoken about it, the emergence of multipolarity. Multipolarity is still in its early stages. It is unevenly developed and it's imperfectly evolved. Grasping its intricacies is therefore itself an enormous challenge. At times, we could overestimate it. On other occasions, it could actually disappoint. Part of the problem is that depending on the metric used, a different set of prominent players emerge in calculations. Military multipolarity, for example, is currently very different from the economic one, or indeed from those of technology, energy, of resources, or other currencies of power. In fact, an overlapping Venn diagram would naturally reduce the number of consequential powers. But as we are seeing from current events, having strong sectoral strengths can itself be very impactful. Another dimension which is also gaining ground arises from the regionalization of power distribution. With the end of the Cold War and the dissipation of that brief period of unipolarity, the world is dealing with the weakening of an overarching architecture. No nation, indeed no alliance, has the ability anymore to impose its will across the world. Not just that, all of them are so chary of commitments that very often they willingly leave players in any region to sort out a particular problem. As a result, middle powers, who in any case are growing in weight and growing in numbers, now have greater space to pursue their interests. Ideally, this should be accompanied by taking on greater responsibilities. That unfortunately doesn't happen in every case. Now, speaking about metrics of power, the ability to disrupt is itself today a very impactful strategic tool in a globalized era. Because the world is so connected, supply chains are so extended, connectivity is still so limited, and time is money. There are opportunities waiting to be exploited by those who have adequate capabilities and a high risk appetite. We can all see what is happening in the Red Sea. The efficiencies of our times have created accompanying vulnerabilities whose exploitation is no longer a function of just orthodox power. Now, having said that, there is also the reality of aggregating many of these trends. Combinations of nations coming together on a specific agenda, sometimes even limited in time and space, are a growing feature of contemporary international relations. Many of them can be benign, they can even be irrelevant to the exercise of power. And India, by the way, has joined or initiated almost 40 such groupings in the last decade. But from time to time, there could be endeavors that have a larger implication for a theater or for a region in terms of stability, security, progress, and prosperity. The Quad and the Indo-Pacific come to mind in this context, since they address deficits in ensuring global good. A very different example are the understandings among certain nations that influence capabilities, including in the midst of conflict. What is common is that in the era of multipolarity, all nations benefit from converging partners. The lesson here is to get beyond the old mold of alliance thinking, something that analysts of that culture find extremely hard to do. While on that subject, a debate on the merits and costs of alliance are also very much a feature of our times. Here too, we have conflicting trends, some emanating from geopolitics, others reflecting domestic divisions. Those who have spent the last 8 decades comfortable in alliance structures are today very worried nations. Others are not indifferent, but are probably nimble enough to seek creative solutions to ensure security and stability. It is hard to predict where this will go, mainly because the nature of challenges themselves vary from region to region. Much as they would deny, most nations are relatively detached on matters that do not immediately impact them. A paradox of our times is that the interdependence of globalization coexists with the self-centeredness of prosperity. Who will step forward, to what degree, on which issue, is getting harder to gauge. Now, if all of this was not enough, let us also recognize that the very nature of power has changed. Application of force is less necessary now to exert influence. In fact, it is often counterproductive. Instead, we have seen the increasing leveraging of economic factors and of technology in world affairs. Sanctions are an extreme example. A more frequent one is to use market shares of everything from exports and imports, resources and services, debt and technology for political purposes. In fact, the very nature of globalization itself is today a national security concern for many of us. That is why we need reliable and resilient supply chains, trusted and transparent digital partners, a diversification of production centers, greater connectivity options. In fact, I would say a serious effort at fairer and more secure re-globalization. Only then can we de-risk not just the global economy, but international affairs itself. The role of rising nationalism in shaping world affairs must also be recognized. In those parts of the world where the old globalization mantra still prevails, nationalism is a bad word. But the truth is that they do reflect the frustration in many developed societies, where the quality of life has been eroded by bad geopolitical and geoeconomic choices. In the developing world, however, the picture is understandably very different. It was nationalism, after all, that triggered independence, growth, rebalancing, and led to multipolarity. In many societies, as these trends matured, more authentic representation took root. They naturally would like to extend rebalancing to its cultural facets as well. Like it or not, the world will be significantly more nationalistic in the foreseeable future. And that means greater individualism, a stronger sense of caution on external commitments, and a global architecture that will be considerably less disciplined. In this context, it is imperative that India clinically evaluate global happenings and calculate its benefits. Often, what is good for us as national interest is also good for the world. That arises partly from the tight connection that we have nurtured with the global south and the confidence that they repose in us. There are multiple divides and frictions in the world now, many of them overlapping. The fundamental one is between those powers competing for the top of the global hierarchy. In some cases, our interests are directly affected, and we should not be timid about making choices that benefit us. There would be occasions when we may not wish to be drawn in on terms that are set by others. By and large, the optimal approach would be to make our judgment and then seek common ground with similar players. From time to time, situations could arise where we may also have to just play our own hand. A multi-vector foreign policy with national security and CNP growth at its core is obviously the answer for India in these circumstances. The fact is that the fifth largest economy in the world, likely to be the third soon, with the kind of external interests that we have developed and will continue to grow, we cannot shirk responsibilities. In fact, it is very much in our interest that this uncertain world is stabilized to the extent possible by rules, by regimes, and by law. And equally important, we have a say in fashioning them. If Air Commodore Jajit was here to strategize with us, my guess is that he would say, 1, build core strengths and deep capabilities ASAP, especially for a world of chips, drones, space, and underwater. Rashtra Suraksha is Atmanirbharta. 2, focus on technology and related HR. Prepare for the era of AI that we have entered. Create the institutional capacities and practices for it. 3. Mitigate external exposure to leveraging by building multiple options. 4. Find convergent partners and advance specific agendas, no matter if they sometimes are at odds. Diplomacy will find a way. Trust us. 5. Leapfrog on capabilities, outthink on tactics, and don't be gamed. And 6. Fix the bane of all systems, that is siloed thinking. Integration, jointness, and holistic approaches are not just military challenges, but systemic ones as well. So let me conclude by saying this. The last decade has been very different in so many dimensions. The global landscape has changed and will continue to do so. India's primary concerns and challenges also have, reflecting that transformation. We are looking at new forms of competition that take advantage of high interpenetration and interdependence. The task before us is to effectively address challenges and confidently exploit opportunities. We have more resources now, but also have higher stakes. There is no question that the world is more volatile and it is more complicated, but I have little doubt that Air Commodore Jasjit Singh would have exhorted us to plan well to rise in an uncertain world. I thank you for your attention.
So there you